Hello YouTubers, cowboy action shooters. This is the C Vaquero doing another gun review, or a little bit of history, a little bit of both. Today I got two guns to compare to. One is a little bit modern, one is a little bit of old school. So let's start with this. Today I got the Taylor & Company's Smoke Wagon. It's basically a Colt clone. Basically, it's the Cattleman, but you get a nice, beautiful pistol grip style stock on it. You get a nice blued finish, and it comes out cowboy action slicked out already, like right out of the box. Now, I don't really see much Smoke Wagon's reviews on it on YouTube, so I only see this really big guy that's on YouTube that reviewed the Smoke Wagon, but he did some kind of alterations to it. So I'm gonna keep it just the way it is. We'll review this. And I got the Ruger new Vaquero. This is in 45 long Colt. Now we're gonna do see the comparisons of what's the difference between the two of them. You know, just for you guys to educate yourself on it. On cowboy action shooting. Let's start with let's start with the Smoke Wagon. Well, the Smoke Wagon is basically a Colt clone, which is basically Taylor & Company, which is also done by Uberti, which Uberti makes guns for Taylor & Company. This is basically a Colt clone, so everything the way it was made back in the days 175 years ago from Colt is exactly the same. So it's basically a carbon replica of it, which means that there's a lot of different kind of process to it. Process in terms of loading and unloading, and sometimes a little bit shooting compared to the Ruger new Vaqueros. But we'll get into that soon enough. Let's talk about the Smoke Wagon's loading system. Loading system, you know, this was made in, or the design was made in 1873 when the Colt came out, the single action army. So we have to go think old school, you know, like really old, like how they shot and how they loaded and unloaded. So you have to clear our minds first. Don't think modern. We have to go back in time. So here we go. To unload, you go half cock, which is 1, 2. Then you can hear it spin. You can hear that spin. That means the loading gate and the loading lock is already disabled. You can open it. By the way, this is checked. No bullets. All the bullets are here. So yeah, that enables you to spin on half cock. Also the trigger. Trigger is totally disengaged. It's locked in. Nothing can like ever pull it. So yeah, that's half cock. You know, you load your rounds one by one, and then you pull back and you slowly disengage it, and there you go. Okay, let's talk about some Hollywood history on it, or the myth, or the how should we say, the loading of 5 shots. You know, a lot of people say the hammer rests on the primer of a bullet, which is so true. I mean, we can see it. I don't know if you can see it, but the hammer rests on the primer. So your final round, which is the 6th round, will basically rest on it, or so that it appears. So some people call it the John Wayne load, where you load 1, skip 1, and put in 4, so it'll rest on the empty chamber. Well, I was thinking back in the days, did they really load 5? You know, I mean, they didn't call this a 6-shooter only to load 5. So I went a little research myself on it, and now going back to I was reading. Well, came out straight from the box. So I found the manual. This is the manual, and I did a little reading on it, and it says right here, it has a basic safety at rest and transport position. What does that mean? So anyway, I dig into it, and it clearly shows from the factory itself that there is a process to load all 6 and safely without having to worry that a primer will go off. So I'm reading it right now. It says these guns have a hammer block safety in the hammer. If you see a small slot at the rear of the hammer, then your hammer has a safety already insert. To activate the hammer safety block, pull the hammer rearward until you hear the first click. Lower the hammer into the safety position. With the hammer in this position, the hammer block safety mechanism is activated. Okay, so everyone knows, or for you guys who don't know, there's a 4 clicks into it. 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Some people have all this mysticism saying, oh, it spells Colt or whatnot or whatever, or they just like hearing the authenticism of 4 clicks, or they just love that sound. But I did a little research, did Google it, and I read a lot of books to find out the clicking sound was really developed with a big greater purpose. So that being said, the manual itself from the factory guarantees you its safety of loading 6 rounds. So this is what I found out back in the old days, their process of how to load all 6 rounds without having to worry a primer is resting on it. You go in half cock, that's 1, 2. Cylinders loose, unlocked, and is ready. You load 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Alright, we got 6 in the chamber, locked and load. So you hold the hammer back, you wait until you hear the first click while going back, then you release your trigger, then you release, then it sets itself on the first click, or what the manual says, a safety mechanism and transport position. So this is the transport position where the first click is actually a locking device which allows you allows the hammer not to rest on the primer, and yet it keeps you safe riding a horse or doing some kind of rough activity or jumping over a fence or whatnot. So it's basically locked in there without the hammer resting on any primer whatsoever. And we gotta remember, folks, the design is very old, so the safety process is very old too. So when people compare it to the Ruger Vaquero, which there is no first click or even a second click, or there is a second click now, but no purpose to spin or open the chamber whatsoever, you can just load all 6 because the new Ruger Vaquero has a transfer bar system, so no firing pin or hammer lays on a primer or a bullet primer. So that being said, you can load all 6 immediately, having not to worry, which is a good safety catch too. But in comparison to the old school way, they both have safety features, and ultimately, when gun enthusiasts or anyone who loves guns, ultimately this is your safety, this and this. So that being said, I wouldn't really say or get into the subject of which is better, because the new Ruger Vaquero is basically the top gun right now in cowboy action shooting right now because of the transfer bar, the safety system, and all that whatnot. But whoever loves the old school style, the Colt clones, which for me, I favor this more than this, the new Ruger Vaqueros. Why? Because I gave it a really long thought, because I traded my Ruger Vaquero, my 357 special new Ruger Vaquero, for the Smoke Wagon, tailored come Smoke Wagon. First of all, it came all slicked out of the box, so that was great already. Second, it really dawned on me, or it started growing on me, that comparing the two, this is a modern gun, regardless of the look. This is a replica. See, this is a look-alike. Now, what's the difference, you say? What is the difference between a look-alike and a replica? Well, replica is what it is. It replicates the original way of how cowboys, or at the 1873, of that period or that time era, how they shot, loaded, unloaded, or just the way they handled their guns. That was the back in the days. So that being said, it really grew on me that I really love the cowboy era. I love American history. I love the 1873 era. So it dawned on me, the new Ruger Vaquero does not bring me back. So for nostalgia, this is basically a modern pistol. It just has it's basically a look-alike. That being said, it just looks like a Vaquero or a cowboy single-action army pistol. But the functions and the features are nothing near it. It's all modern. So that being said, and me being a old school fan, I love the Smoke Wagon more over the new Vaquero. Simply because I can still cowboy action shoot. It's just I have to go back and then re-practice, retrain myself for safety practices on this gun more than this. Think of it as cowboy action shooting or single action shooting for dummies. No offense to anyone out there, but you could just load, lock and load, blah 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 or whatnot, and then you're good to go. While this ultimately has a different process. It still has a safety device, still have a safety process, but it's just different. So this is to me a more personal gun. Like you can't just give it to someone, hey, shoot this and blah blah blah, load it all 6 or whatever. So that being said, it's more of a personal gun where, especially in the modern day world where the safety functions of a lot of modern revolvers and guns, are all standardized and whatever and whatnot. But when you go this way, old school way, you really have to train their way of like safety and process. So you really have to go back. So I wouldn't say it's a negative. I'm just saying is that you have to be like, if you're really fan of old school, because every time you shoot this, you're shooting, reloading and unloading 175 years of history. It really takes you that back into time. And that's what I really enjoy. I mean, I'm not only a cowboy action fan or shooter, but I like, any chance I could get to go back in time, this gun is it. This is my choice. So all you people who are interested in cowboy action shooting, or I think the Smoke Wagon from Taylor & Company is one of the, if only the best replica out there of the Colt clone with an affordable price. Price was roughly $610. That's including paperwork and whatnot. But ultimately, if you are a safety guy but love the look of it, your choice would be the Ruger New Vaquero. And it's easy safety functions. Just load and lock it, and then you're good to go. While this has a process, but it does take you back in time, and it's just so much beautiful, more beautiful than the new Ruger Vaqueros. For some reason, stainless, and you get the blued feature. That's it. But then you get a kind of like cheap plastic grip on it. Well, Taylor & Company, the Smoke Wagon, gives you a beautiful red walnut pistol grip style, and without even the screw hole. Kind of ugly to me. That's my personal preference. But when you see this, you'll see that little screw hole. First, let's unload this now. Love that sound. It just sounds way different. More classical. This is like more classic. Just so beautiful. Even the finish, the blues finished. That guy in the YouTube video that reviewed the Smoke Wagon, he kind of altered it, and then he showed this picture how it was before and after, before it was altered. But I personally love the way it comes out of the box. It's beautiful, shiny blue, color case hardened color, beautiful red walnut grips. It's just a beautiful gun, gorgeous gun, and it shoots great too. You can see in my own videos, me speed shooting and all that whatnot. You'll see me shoot the Smoke Wagon, and it's actually very smooth. So there you have it, my review between the two, new Ruger Vaquero or the Taylor & Company Smoke Wagon. Both great guns, both good for cowboy action shooting. Only difference I would choose, if you're an enthusiast and you like to go back in time, this is the way to go. Gives you that old feeling. And as Uberti's advertised, like, get one and feel the history, which you absolutely feel the history on it. You know, I kid you not. And before we wrap this up, going back to the authentic piece of things, you can see that the old Colt design or replica design has this trigger very slim, and it slightly goes to the right instead of dead center. I don't know if you can see that or not, but yeah, the trigger, it's kind of weird. I guess that's the way it was, you know. And then you got your three screw inserts, and the trigger is just slightly more to the right side than, you know, dead center, and has that really slim kind of one single line looking trigger. And versus the Vaquero, where you could see this triangle like slot right there, and the trigger is pretty big. And regardless of Ruger claims that they scaled down the Ruger Vaquero frame closer to the Colt, it's just but it's exactly how it's said, close but no cigar. This is actually a little bit smaller than this, regardless of Ruger's. I don't see if you can see the comparison, but yeah, it's really big. I mean, this is a hunk of metal, and people say that the Black Hawk is a hunk of metal, the Ruger Vaquero slimmed down to Colt size. Well, this one is actually still smaller, and the weight is actually way lighter. Well, not really way lighter, but you do feel a difference in weight. So this has a nice slim look, which is great too. I love it. And I'm just a big fan of cowboy action shooting and American history alike. So my thoughts has to go to the Smoke Wagon, because it takes you really back in time. So let's just do a little recap of how to load all 6. You see that first click? That's the so-called safety transport position. You know, nothing. That's when the hammer doesn't rest on anything. You can see it right through. I don't know if you can see that through, but there's no hammer or anything resting on any of the cylinder chambers on it. So we put it in half cock. Open the gate. Load 1. Load 2. Load 3. 4, 5, and 6. Okay, got loading gate closed. Now pull it and slowly, safely pull back until you hear the first click. Then you release your trigger, then you release your hammer. Then you're on the safety transport position. You could ride your horse on it, ride it in your car. As long as this doesn't go here, you'll be just fine. So that eliminates the whole 5-shot in a 6-shooter, which totally doesn't make sense to me, unless you're really paranoid. I guess in the 1950s or 60s, the John Wayne period, a lot of times the actors are not even gun handlers themselves. So I guess that became a safety issue, you know, which is fine too. I mean, you can't really blame them. It's a movie set, you know, and they kind of notice those little details that, hey, a hammer rests on a primer of a bullet and might be unsafe, regardless if it's a blank or not, a blank round. But did not or failed to realize that there is that one first click that enables you to do all 6, called the rest transport position, rest at rest safety transport position. So safety wise, you would go for this new Ruger Vaquero. Load all 6, open the loading gate, don't have to go in half cock, load all 6. There's a transfer bar, no nipple or hammer pin protruding, so you're good right off the shooting. With this, of course, one half cock, load. We all know that has the hammer, that has the hammer pin. Nothing bad about it. It's just you'll have to do a different process in loading and unloading. You have to go back in time. So I can't really say anything negative about each gun. Both guns are good, but I just felt that I needed to clear a lot of things on people's mind, that you can load all 6. And then the origins of the whole load 5 is kind of in a paranoid era between the 50s and 60s on movie sets. That's on cowboy action shooting, where you have to have 2 pistols, and the point system is 5 shots, so it equals 10 total on pistol points. So that's fine. But for a person who just loves the old cowboy guns, you can load all 6 and safely without primers or hammers resting on primers. Well, hope you like my own review. Give it some thought, make some comments on this video. And thanks for watching. I'll see you all later. Keep shooting, most of all, keep safe.